Gentlemen, I'd like to thank NASA, I think, for organizing this conference. And I think all of us as practitioners for making sure that we attend these conferences, we learn as much and we share ideas. I think a blissful thanks to the day one presenters. I think yesterday we learned a lot. The presenter who spoke to us on Risk Runner, we're taken through a virtual walkthrough on remote audits. We're also taken through a great symposium which was held here where there were a lot of ideas that were crossing in the mining sector, etc., etc. But you would always see that the person who was leading the conversation was trying to understand how technology is being used to answer the questions which were coming over and over and over those topics. And I think then we had a lot of the breakaway sessions where we also learned a lot. I think there was a session on economics, there was another session on the future of the workplace, but there was another session that was held here which dealt on artificial intelligence and machine learning. And I think those that attended would attest and agree with me that the presentation that was done here was a very interesting one. I will not delve into it, but I'll quickly go through my presentation. So I think like the presentation says, today I'll be talking about artificial intelligence. And what we then want to quickly then look at is the discussion that we want to have is a discussion around these disruptive technologies and the question on the data protection era. You'd agree with me that that was done. But maybe before you can go back, but maybe before we start, I think like every other safety practitioner, you'd always have a safety moment. Maybe you can move to that slide. Yes. I just thought that maybe we can just have a safety moment. But in our safety moment today, we talk on cybersecurity. I think it's the month of October. I wouldn't have done justice if I do not talk about cybersecurity issues. So if you can look closely to that email, it's an email password reset that is coming from Microsoft. The image, the colors, everything is correct. The title is correct. But if you look closely, if you look at the line that's underlined in blue there, you'd see that that's not the actual Microsoft extension. Those are some of the things that we talk about at the workplace, but we forget to talk about them. You'd realize that our IT teams would always put firewalls that have the ability to detect any intrusion that would always come. But we then have a second layer, which is the human firewall, who is me and you and the persons that we lead at the workplaces. So let's, as safety practitioners, also then take this safety glitch and talk about some of the things that may happen and talk of the safety firewall that we can have. Thank you so much for being with me on this safety moment. I think we can move to our presentation today. So I'll basically take us through what AI is and the use cases that are there, but then trickle into a discussion of some of the things that are happening. But as I talk through, remember the question that was asked at the first, is AI the new safety officer? And I think maybe just to build in on Prof. Gary and Mr. Matambo's presentations yesterday, you'd see that everyone was concerned, but everyone was also excited in the same line. The excitement is coming because there is a lot of interventions and technologies and AI applications that are being used at the workplace, but all of them are replacing a safety officer. I think there is no need for me, for those that attended that session yesterday, to explain more how AI is becoming the new safety officer. It's replacing inspections, it's replacing anything that you do on a day-to-day. So if you look at your job description, you would see that your job description is being taken over by an AI system. Moving forward, you'd see that, you can move forward. You can see that artificial intelligence is getting a lot of applications in retail, applications in mining, applications in transportation, applications in marketing, and any other industry that you can think. There is always application of artificial intelligence. But in all these industries, you see that leading is retail. You also see that there is some adaptation in most of the industries to which me and you as safety practitioners belong. Moving forward, you'd also then see from a study by McKinsey. So I'll delve just a bit on that study by McKinsey. When you look at the study, what basically the study is saying that the adaptation of artificial intelligence by 2030, it's going to be at about 50%, where 6 out of 10 serious companies are going to adopt artificial intelligence and replace full-time employees. And the study then goes on to, if you look at it, it then also then says from adaptation in 2030, of artificial intelligence, if there is low uptake of artificial intelligence, there is going to be displacement of about 30 million people. But if it's going to be aggressive and very high, it's going to replace up to about 800 million people. And if you look at it in the job market, me and you as safety practitioners occupy that 800 million. But if 800 million are going to be replaced by artificial intelligence system, what do you think is going to happen to your job and my job? That's the question. But to the right of the screen, you can also then look at that schematic drawing. That is exactly what is going to replace us, a large language model system. And this large language model system is basically a system that has the ability to read images, language, or any input data and convert it into a decision. And because it has that capacity, it's basically doing what me and you can do, where you see somebody who's working under a suspended load without a hard head, or just basically working under a suspended load. Your instinct as a safety practitioner is to save the life and to take the person out of that suspended load. The AI systems and those that were demonstrated yesterday is a clear indication that AI systems, through utilization of computer vision and other aspects of artificial intelligence, it can then just take away a job because it can see using cameras that there's someone who's working under a suspended load, raise an alarm, and then somebody is taken off or somebody is disciplined. So you can see that the application of artificial intelligence would quickly come in and replace your job and my job. But it's just that system, that schematic system that has the ability to see, make a decision, and then raise a red flag, the same thing that me and you do. Moving forward, I will not labor, I think, all of us on the abstract of this issue because I've already set the tone. So we can move forward and deal with the most important things. And also, I think with the definitions, I will not do the same because I think the justice has been done. And I think this presentation will also be available on machine learning and artificial intelligence. But let's move into the next thing, which is data protection era. In 2021, POTRAs mandated by the government of Zimbabwe promulgated what we call the Cyber and Data Protection Act, Act number 5 for 2021. And this act is a very interesting piece of legislation. It was ignored when it came through, and then another statutory instrument for enforcement was then promulgated in 2024 September, mandating and giving clear instructions that any person who holds data of about 50 data subjects, that person should register as a data controller. And I think most of us made insignificant noise when we're talking about WhatsApp admins, but that was not what the Act was actually talking about. It was talking about most important things which we want to talk about today. It talks of lawful processing of personal data. It talks of consent and transparency. It talks of automated decision-making and algorithmic profiling. These are some of the things that we use these AI systems to do, and the Act speaks on those things clearly. It speaks on data minimization and data subject rights. It speaks of cross-border data transfers. I think it's a very interesting one. The Act there is basically telling you that if you are going to be transferring data to a server which is outside the peripheries of Zimbabwe, you need to conduct what they call a data protection impact assessment. But before you do that, you need to notify them that you're doing so. So it means that if you're going to be writing any emails using Gmail, Microsoft, or anything that has got servers that are hosted outside your WhatsApps, your anything, you need to notify them that you're processing data and you're sending it outside the country. And yesterday, a discussion struck with regards to these AI systems when somebody was asking to say, are we ready? And the person who responded indicated to say that you'd need a stronger data center for you to do so. And currently in Zimbabwe, we do not have the capacity to do so, and as such, you need to host your data center, your platform outside the country. And as such, your Data Protection Act then puts a question mark to say, does the location where you want to put your server have sufficient safeguards? That's your section 18, 19, and 21 of the Cyber and Data Protection Act, which puts those safeguards. It also talks on security safeguards, data breach notification, registration of data controllers. So what basically they're saying is if you're going to be processing data for about 50 subjects, you need to notify them that you're doing so. And you would see that there is a general oversight on POTRA. So over and above all of the regulators that as chief practitioners we've been dealing with, POTRAS is coming in as a top layer which is going to be dealing with you with regards to such things. And your applications of artificial intelligence, you'd find that as chief practitioners currently we are using it for incident trend analysis, we are using it for frequent incident prediction. We're using it for incident investigation using your 5 Whys, your Ishikawa, your fault tree. We use it for bow tie risk assessments. We're using it for incident focused training. And because we are using these systems and many other applications, you can see PPE monitoring, predictive risk assessment, incident root cause analysis, safety, all those things. They are things that we are using the artificial intelligence systems for doing those things. But if you go and look at your job description as a safety officer or as a safety manager, those are some of the things that you do on a day-to-day. And if an artificial intelligence system is capable of doing your job, then you need to be worried there. But you'd see that for us to be able to perform or apply artificial intelligence, there are basic rules that are there. And these basic rules are also rules that are laid by the Cyber and Data Protection Act, laid by the Constitution of Zimbabwe, laid by a lot of platforms. I think those that are following, currently Zimbabwe is developing an AI policy to be able to govern the application and use of AIs. And as a safety practitioner, the question is, are you involved in those decisions, in those discussions, and are you contributing positively to those discussions? You'd see that there is always a clash when you talk of artificial intelligence, machine learning, and data protection, because despite the beauties which it gives you, your analysis, your your decision making, your sensing, your reasoning capacity that you enjoy, there are two questions that will always be asked: a privacy question and a security question. And I think the discussion that was had yesterday, those are the issues in question, to say what of privacy and what of security. You'd see that any artificial intelligence system or machine learning system, despite its capability, its ability and everything, it's always got security and privacy issues. And those are the issues which the Data Protection Act then brings into context. What am I saying to any health and safety practitioner? I'm saying to every health and safety practitioner, whenever you think of artificial intelligence, whenever you think of machine learning, always think of data protection issues. But what you then see is, over time, these applications and the utilization of them to a general safety practitioner, we have tended to ignore them. That is the reason why I decided to invoke this discussion, because all my fellow practitioners have always accepted what was coming from IT. And I think let's quickly move to the results of the survey and see. I think that slide basically was trying to tell you that in the life cycle of any artificial intelligence system, you would always find the CDPA, your Cyber and Data Protection Act, asking you a lot of questions to answer. So you can never implement, deploy, or run or improve any artificial intelligence without answering to the Cyber and Data Protection Act. And it's coming in hot and it's coming in serious. Now, looking at the research findings, I think these were really funny findings that I got. I looked at 3 parameters first and then did a deep dive using a case that we had of an artificial intelligence system that we deployed. You can move into the first graph. From the first graph, you can see that there is about 1.1% of the surveyed individuals who have implemented full large language models. You'd find that there are 12% who are still skeptical about it. There's a 12.5% who have integrated AI. You'd find people using Power BI, people using other intelligence systems, your managed engines, and other your Darktrace, your Sentinel-1, your Fortinet, to integrate into your risk analysis processes. But there's that 62%, probably if there's 100 people in this 6, there are 62 people here who say that AI is the IT people's responsibility. What dawned to me was that I was just looking at people who have adopted AI systems. But what then dawned to me after a clear analysis is that 62 of us, if 100 of us are put in one room, 62 of us are going to be replaced, because the IT person is going to impress management by deploying a full AI system that is going to replace your job, because you think it's an IT thing. So let's get out of this cloud of thinking that it's the responsibility of our IT teams to look into artificial intelligence. What we basically need to do is to be involved into these things and make decisions, and also proffer clear decisions to management when it comes to application of AIs. I also then looked into the cyber and data protection application. 5% are compliant, 10% are preparing, 20% they are aware but they are ignorant of the Cyber and Data Protection Act, and there's a large group of us who have not complied with the Cyber and Data Protection Act. The law is going to come in hard at us. And then you cannot talk to proceed and not talk of systems. With the ISO 42001, you will find a general safety practitioner who's aware of ISO 45001 and is not aware of all other related management systems that are critical into today's world. And I would want to challenge the rest of the group that is in the last bar there, who are unaware of the ISO 42000, to say it is high time that we quickly get into other management system standards that speak to critical things. You'd find that you've got your ISO 27001, which speaks to information security. You'd find your ISO 2701, which speaks on data privacy, that all of us need to be aware on, especially if you're going to implement clause 4.5 of your ISO 45001. If you read with me, clause 4.5, it talks of worker participation and consultation, and me and you just put a camera there and you put a suggestion box there. But from the Cyber and Data Protection Act, any idea that I put in a suggestion box is my opinion. And if you go and read with me the Cyber and Data Protection Act, it then says that any information that I write, which is my own opinion, becomes sensitive information. And there your clause 4.5 from ISO 45001 gets governed already by the Cyber and Data Protection Act. So when you go home today or tomorrow or now, when you look at your clause 5, how you've applied it, look at how the Cyber and Data Protection Act is speaking to that clause 4.5. If you go with me clause by clause from ISO 45001, you actually realize that the Cyber and Data Protection Act is going to speak to how you treat your employees and how you've applied the current controls that you have. Those that have got 9001, I know you've put an exclusion on clause 84, 83 on design and development because you say we don't do design and development. But your IT teams are busy implementing artificial intelligence. They're busy moving them quickly, but you've excluded design and development. And now, if you've got a 9001 and if you put a disclaimer that I have an exclusion on design and development and the Cyber and Data Protection Act and other things, they affect you. So my advice is when you go back, review your manuals. On your normative referencing there, make sure that you reference the proper standards and not just your ISO 45001. There is where we'll lose friends. We deployed, I think those that use fiscalization will relate to this. We deployed an agent which we call Alexis, which it's an AI model that we deployed, which was going to assist you in terms of your invoicing and fiscalizing and all those things. But what you'd see is from the research that we then did on this case, which I'll then apply in generic to any tool that you can use, you'd see that, please pay attention here, you lose me. Large language models, your traditional large language models, over time, you see when you look at the red line there, which is sloping downwards, your training data. Whatsoever tool that you take, let's just say maybe an incident investigation tool, you deploy it. Because you've got raw and wrong data in your systems, over time, your data becomes purified, your data becomes clear. So the training data error reduces over time. And the performance of that artificial intelligence system, which is your blue line there, over time, because training data is improving, your model flaws or your model errors, they also reduce. But you get to a point where you are in between an underfitting and an overfitting, your demarcation point. I think those that did economics, you talk of your diminishing of returns. With artificial intelligence, you get to a point where we call diminishing of returns, where your artificial intelligence system, whatever tool that you've deployed, cannot learn new things. And because it cannot learn new things, it then starts to make new errors. And that's your traditional large language models. But your traditional large language models, over time also, they move and become what we call agentic artificial intelligence, where they now become autonomous, they're capable of making decisions on their own. And because they become agentic, you see the blue line there in terms of model error, it's low, because it's still agentic learning, it's still learning and still making decisions. But there's a sharp increase there. It's because an agentic model, when it starts to learn and it has learned so much, it becomes dependent on its own self and it then becomes overconfident. And because that system becomes overconfident, it begins to make its own assumptions and it gets to a point which we call hallucinations. So this is the danger now with artificial intelligence models, because they begin to hallucinate. It's actually a proper term which is used to say they actually hallucinate. They start to make decisions based on what they think is right, and they divorce themselves from real-world experience. So if you deploy a tool that you use maybe for incident investigation, and in Zimbabwe, you find your tatendas, your tafadzwas, those are common names. If you probably record 10 or 15 incidents involving different people called tafadzwa, because the model is learning tafadzwa, what the model will then do to say tafadzwa inyanya. So whatever incident that you will record in that system using a tafadzwa or a tatenda or any generic name, it will give you a ridiculous outcome for that incident. Or if in 20 years you've never had an incident, and then you put in a fatality into that system, it will hallucinate and start giving you ridiculous outcomes because it has not learned and it has divorced itself from real life applications. So those are the dangers with these systems, and that is the danger that we actually learned. Moving forward, I think there are two things that are critical whenever you talk of artificial intelligence system. There is one principle which we call performance loss, to say over time you lose the performance of the artificial intelligence. You can move the slide. You lose what we call, you have what we call performance losses. And because your system is hallucinating, you get performance losses. I think those were asking questions to say, should I invest in an AI system? When you invest in an AI system, be wary to ask questions to say, at what point do I get a performance loss? And over time, you also then get what we call an ethical risk, because it then fails to respect ethical considerations. You can move the slide, I think, quickly. You get your ethical risks, and what you then need to do as a safety personnel, why I then say a safety personnel should not then say AI issues are only IT things. Move the slide. I think if you move the slide, you find what we call semantic grounding. There is a concept which is called semantic grounding, which a lot of people who deploy artificial intelligence systems forget to semantically ground their systems to avoid performance losses. So when you ground your artificial intelligence system, you actually enable it to have a safety switch to say the moment it starts to hallucinate, it actually decouples. And when it decouples, it becomes a safety switch. So a safety practitioner then becomes critical there, because all systems that you deploy should have that decoupling ability, or the ability for it to be able to do what a human being should be able to do. And then you also then put in place what we call ethical governance. But the problem, the ethical governance loop, the problem with it is it's AI supervising AI. And we don't know at what point the AI that is supervising another AI then also gets to a diminishing of returns. So that's the danger with these systems. And I think now all of us are confused to then say, so is AI going to be the new check officer? And what are we going to do with these disruptive technologies, given these risks that I've talked about? I think we can move forward with the slide to then say, what are the conclusions? You can move forward. What are the conclusions with regards to this subject matter that we've talked about? I think we have a AAA call that all of us as safety practitioners say, to say that the role of a safety practitioner is to audit, to advise, and to assist. And I think it's our take-home activity. Let's go home, let's advise, let's audit, let's assist those systems that are being developed and deployed in our organization. I think the engineer who spoke, Prof, yesterday, he said that you just need somebody who knows the organization and somebody, the knowledge engineer. But I think a safety person should be there when you discuss these things, because you have to have a conversation around these issues to do your AAA. But we have a AAA problem. I think you can move to the last slide. We have a AAA problem, which is that artificial intelligence is accelerating, it's being adapted, and it's being advanced in a fast-paced manner. You can move the slide. It's being moved in a fast-paced manner. That's your AAA problem. And because of your AAA problem, you can move, I think, there, yes. Your adoption, acceleration, and acceptance of artificial intelligence is becoming high. And because it's becoming high, it's highly likely that it's going to replace your job. And for it not to replace your job, I think let's move into the next slide. For it not to replace your job, you then need to have an integrated platform. So when you go home today with your ISO 45001, which is the framework that all of us ride on, let's then go home and on your normative referencing, Look at ISO 42000, look at ISO 27000, look at ISO 2701. I think if Madam Nozi is here, probably she would fight with me or she would agree with me to say that when they come to audit for certification, usually people don't look at normative referencing, but it's one of the most important things that you need to do and make sure that your ISO 45001 is guarded, guardrailed, and protected by other knowledge standards, which can then help you to deploy artificial intelligence systems if you then want to. And then for you to be able to safeguard your job, make sure that you've got an ISO 45001 management system that is running. Once you do that, you safeguard your job and then adopt other management systems that are there. And then I think, just in conclusion, I would probably then say the future of safe operations requires clarity on what the future holds. The use of predictive, adaptive, and disruptive technologies is admirable if there is a deliberate and clear investment to the future technologies. So today, let's go home, let's invest in understanding AI systems and their potentials. Let's go home, invest in understanding the culture of our organization and our own people, and also let's also understand the legal frameworks and the potential direction of artificial intelligence which is coming in. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that I've struck a nerve in you, and I've tried to then develop a path to integration, to then say, before you do anything, do your research and development, deploy lean systems, don't go in full-blown with your agentic AIs. Let's develop them as traditional large language models. We use them, we train them, we understand them, and then over time we start to develop use cases. We test those use cases, and then overally then have integrated automated system. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I would end here and say thank you very much, and I hope that I've given you enough homework to go and discuss in your various workplaces. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Proceed Subanda. Let's give him another round of applause. That was quite a mouthful. I mean, in terms of the presentation, I do trust and hope that we were also able to manage to pick quite a very important illustrations and issues. What we have decided to do is that we invite the presenters, they talk to us, and then thereafter, we will then give a platform for questions and the issues of clarity. So then that means that I will have to invite our second presenter, who is going to take us through a discussion on revolutionizing occupational safety and health in Zimbabwe, AI and machine learning, driven robotic systems for automated vaccine production in animal health. And this presentation is going to be led by Engineer Blissful Mamombe, who is the Director of Informatics Institute, Scientific Industrial Research and Development Center. May I please ask you and invite you to come forward. Let's give him a round of applause as he is coming forward. So, Engineer Blissful Mamombe. So, Engineer Blissful Mamombe is a scientist and a strategic leader. He directs the Scientific and Industrial Research and Development Center, the Informatics Institute. He spearheads research at the intersection of AI, machine learning, cybersecurity, engineering, applying rigorous scientific principles to revolutionize product safety and health services. His work translates complex theory into practical, transformative technological breakthroughs, enhancing operational efficiency and driving impactful business innovation. He fosters a culture of scientific excellency within his team. So let me invite him to also take us through the presentation as advised. Thank you very much. You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Probably I would say good afternoon. It's very hot here in Victoria Falls. Firstly, what I would want to say, considering what the first presenter has said, that just to give you assurance that your jobs are very safe. You are not going to lose your jobs. What artificial intelligence is going to do is going to enhance the way you are already doing your jobs. Mr. Proceed. I think most of the guys here would start to resist artificial intelligence. So for you not to lose your jobs, like what Mr. Proceed said, you need to move with time. You need to embrace artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is here, and whether you like it or not, it's going to come. If we take, for example, we have our mobile phones. Every day we change versions of our phones. We update our softwares, we update our systems. Whenever you update your systems, whenever you update your software, there's a component of an artificial intelligence application which is coming with it. Meaning to say, artificial intelligence is there. Okay. Let me jump into my presentation. You can, first slide, please. First slide, please. First slide. First slide. Thank you very much. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to present on a topic revolutionizing occupational safety and health in Zimbabwe, AI and machine learning driven robotic systems for automated vaccine production in animal health. So I chose this topic specifically saying vaccine production, but what I'm going to say mostly will also apply to those who are in manufacturing, those in mining, those in different industries. We are going to take the vaccine production as a way of illustrating how artificial intelligence is being used in all these sectors. My name is Blissful Mamombe. I work with SIRDC. Can we move to the next slide, please? So this is my presentation outline. I'm going to talk about the risk associated with occupational safety and health, limitations, the solution, how are we going to enhance safety and quality, and the broader application of artificial intelligence, the challenges for implementation. We are also, I'm also going to give certain recommendations to the risks and limitations that I would have outlined. Let's move on to the next slide. The problem, you find out that when in conventional vaccine production, it's mostly hazardous. We use materials which are hazardous, be it biological hazards, chemical hazards, the economic hazards, and also the challenge that we have is we have outdated facilities also that we are using in the field of vaccine production. But not just, like I said, the vaccine production. Even also this same applies also in those who are in mining, those who are in the health sector, and whatever sector that you are in. These risks also are there. So, and the limitations to it is because of this infrastructure, we have, there's a requirement of labor, too much labor to do it, labor intensive. We rely mostly on manual labor for mixing, filling, inspection, like what the first speaker said, that in safety also we need to embrace AI because sooner or later the AI will do our jobs. It is prone to errors. Can you return back again to that slide? Prone to errors, limited scalability, and high risk, since most of the workers, they have direct exposure to the hazards, which are unavoidable. Yes, next slide. The solution to this, These solutions, some of them, they are already here. We might not develop them here in Zimbabwe, but in other countries, they're already implementing those. So these technologies, sometimes we just simply need to adopt these technologies and use them here. Which is the faster way of, I think, of moving with technologies. For example, we have our AI-powered robotic arms. I visited some companies here. There are some companies also who have these robotics arms, which they use to automate their tasks. So AI-powered robotics, they automate these hazardous tasks. You know what robots do? They come to do some of the jobs that us humans cannot do, or which we call dirty jobs, right? You are working in an industry where you subject yourself in hazardous materials or very risky jobs, those who are in mining. There's use of robots to do some of those tasks for you. And what I'm trying to say is we need to move. We need also to move with time, be it in the sphere of robotics or AI, or even machine learning. I think from yesterday, the breakout session yesterday in artificial intelligence, the speakers there, they tried to dissect artificial intelligence and machine learning, the relationship which is there between artificial intelligence and machine learning, and they even went further in demonstrating how machine learning and artificial intelligence can be used in some of the jobs that we are already doing. But just to say, they are not going to replace your jobs. Machine learning algorithms, also this is another solution. We use them to analyze data. There is definitely a need for us to have these data sets for optimum growth conditions and also to improve yields in our different sectors that we are in. It's also a challenge that we don't have these data sets. We were not collecting this data when other countries were also doing so. But I'm sure now, because of the implementation of these AIs and machine learning, we are collecting data now. And it's very important in analyzing data. Taking you back again from the presentation of yesterday, where it was presented a computer vision model, where a model has to detect what a human being is doing in a factory, either it was a near miss event, or it was nothing. So this machine learning, through the data that you have trained your model, it is very intelligent to the extent that it will give a decision on that. Also, in terms of predictive maintenance, you see, in our organizations, we have machineries that we have. But at the same time, when the machine is running, we don't know when this machine is going to fail. So through machine learning and artificial intelligence, it is now easier for you to predict that in the next 2 weeks, maybe because of the sound this machine is producing, this machine would need service, or this machine will need to be switched off, just by analyzing through the data, the models that we have trained with the data that we have kept. Can you move on to the next slide? So what are the benefits enhancing safety and quality? We find out that reducing the human contact with hazardous substances, we reduce risks for those who are in jobs which expose them to these risks. There's also production improvement to that. There's increased consistency, there's reduced wastage, and also there's a faster response in any incident. Okay, let's move to the next slide. Right. So in speaking at the broader terms of artificial intelligence and AI, like what I have mentioned before, that artificial intelligence in machine learning, the robotics, these technologies are already with us. For those who are in mining, you find out that we have even wearable heads or jackets, right? That can identify even your mood for the day. You know, uchipinda padoro dana, go back home. Your mood is not right for you to operate this machinery. You see, they are there. These things are there. We just need to adopt and adapt to this situation. With what I spoke about, the predictive analytics, where you can forecast accidents. One presenter also yesterday presented on accidents, road accidents in terms of traffic. These models also can predict that the car that you are using, you're prone to an accident in a week or two. These technologies are there. Virtual reality, you can simulate even a task before you implement it or the actual thing has happened. You can even try, you know, when we talk of virtual reality, we are simulating something not in real life situation. But you put all the factors to anticipate what is going to happen and have an informed decision based on that. Next slide. So, what are the challenges that we have been facing as Zimbabwe in trying to implement? The infrastructure, I'm sure other presenters also constantly mentioned this. We definitely, when we want to implement artificial intelligence, there is need for uninterrupted power. There is need for connectivity. There is also need for water in trying to cool some of the systems. So these are very important factors in implementing artificial intelligence. We have also a skills gap. You see, as SIRDC, we have been trying so hard to try and train people in terms of artificial intelligence and machine learning, so that we try to enhance their skills, because AI is with us, and whether we like it or not, like what I've explained, is already here, and we need to be skilled when the time comes that your job is about to be replaced, even though it's not going to be replaced. There's data ecosystems, right? Data is now the new oil, you know, the new currency now. It is very, very important. So since we're not collecting this data and try to standardize them in these past years, it is very crucial that these things should happen. And these are some of the limitations that we are facing now as experts in AI. Whenever you try to train a model, maybe that data is not available, or that data is not standardized to be used to train our models. So it's another challenge or to that for implementing AI in Zimbabwe. We also talk of policy gap. I think when I prepared this slide, it was before the announcement that from the Minister of ICT, that we now have a strategy an AI strategy, which is a very good move towards implementing AI in Zimbabwe. I'm sure we are now moving into policy and so forth, which is very important. So in this past few years of implementing artificial intelligence, this regulatory framework, it was actually something that is needed for us to implement. So what are the recommendations that I would recommend, or that representing other experts in AI that would recommend? So these recommendations, they come from at national level, we have at industrial level, that is you and me in different sectors that you are in, at educational level also. At national level, where we are talking of investment in terms of digital infrastructure to create a supportive AI policy, so that we support this initiative, we support these technologies. We talk of also at industrial level, in your organization, in your companies, you need to embrace AI. You also need to automate some of your tasks that you are already doing. Those who are in inspection, those who inspect quality control. Yes, those in quality control, you also need to implement AI. The machine, the computer vision process, where everything is being done using cameras, using IoT, the Internet of Things. So this is very important also at industrial level. At educational level, I think this is also happening. We need to be intentional in doing this. We need to be intentional in terms of policies that we do in our schools, in our education. I think I've seen a lot happening in universities. There are degrees, programs which are coming, which has to do with AI, machine learning, and data science. Also, from my organization that I come from, we are the research center for the country's research center. We have a lot of things that we've done in pioneering research in terms of AI, in terms of capacity building, trainings, developing even models. We have quite a lot of models that even we can implement in your organization, depending on your needs also and wants. So maybe probably what we would do is to intensify how we are going to transfer these technologies to your organization. Next slide, please. So the recommendations, these are the ones which I spoke about also. Next slide. I think in conclusion, the key takeaways from this presentation, I mean, in terms of the way forward, we need to address infrastructure, the skills gap which I spoke about. We also need the funding. Also collaborations from different organizations, and also to embrace the robotics systems in our day-to-day. Next slide. Okay. Any questions? I think there are no questions. Thank you very much for your time. I would like to thank the team that I was with that made this possible to put down this presentation. Thank you very much. Thank you everyone for listening.
Yes, can we give him again another round of applause? Thank you very much, Engineer Mamombe, for taking us through this conversation on revolutionizing occupational safety and health in Zimbabwe, AI and machines. Quite an interesting presentation. As the chairperson for this session, I also got very much interested when you talked about predictive analytics as a form that can also detect, occupational safety and health accidents or hazards and also help us to try and prevent or mitigate. But I have also another side that I've been thinking about when I was there. I mean, listening to predictive analytics. And I think we will have a bilateral because I see somewhere a gap where I can also get to make a little bit of money. Yes, I see that coming. Right, thank you very much. So, distinguished participants, I think those of you who have questions or comments, you have to hold on a little bit as we go into the last presentation. Then thereafter, we get into a discussion. So having said that, the next discussion or conversation is around enhancing occupational safety in Zimbabwe's heavy industry and AI-driven risk assessment system. So this conversation is going to be led by Mr. Delvin T. Vengesai, AI Product Manager of Muktech Private Limited. May I invite you to the podium. Let's give him a round of applause as he's coming up. Thank you and welcome. I will just go through your profile and then I'll invite you. Yeah. So just going through the profile of Mr. Vengesai, he's an early career business informatics researcher with a BSc honors degree from the University of Zimbabwe, currently serving as the AI product manager at Muktech, an IT systems and data services company based in Harare. In this role, he leverages a strong foundation at the intersection of business and technology to drive AI solutions that enhance organizational efficiency and decision-making. So again, he's going to take us through enhancing occupational safety in Zimbabwe's heavy industry in AI-driven risk assessment system. Mr. Delvin T. Vengesai, you are welcome to talk to us. Thank you very much.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. All protocol observed. Maybe, as you can see from my face, I'm sure it was supposed to come up here. I'm very excited to be here to talk about artificial intelligence. And my presentation is as simple as my bio. And it is my goal to demystify AI, to make sure that each and every one of you understand that while AI might not replace your jobs, it can, right? It might do that. And I'm here today so that I can help you understand what these systems are, what they do, how they work, right? So in my line of work, you heard I stand at the intersection of business and the technical side. I mostly work with engineers, right, who understand the nuanced details in machine learning systems, right, that the layman, the people at the use end of these systems might not understand, right? So I'm going to present, I'm going to give my presentation in as simple way as possible so that you understand how we build these systems and how they can be applicable to your work and how you can use them. And maybe you might be interested in getting started to develop these systems. So I think the first word on my title presentation is enhancing, right? When I said it can, right, it meant that if you don't understand AI, right, if you don't invest in the skill set to understand this technology, you may get left behind, right? Because this tool is available for you to use it to make your job easier so that we can ensure occupational safety for every employee, especially in these heavy industries where the employees have to deal with dangerous situations each and every day. And it is important that we invest in these technologies so that we can ensure safety. So, yeah, that's my topic. You can see it here. So we can go ahead on the first slide. So I'm sure you already have this information. Maybe it has been talked about in previous sessions, right? But maybe we can go back to the problem that we're all facing right now. And we can start from the global scale. So looking at the global impact, right, I have to apologize. AI made this entire presentation and it's made a significant error when it's outlined annually. So you have to divide these numbers by 3, right? These are not annual statistics, but from 2016 to 2019, right? So the global impact of these workplace hazards, right, stands at 278 million people who have died from workplace-related injuries from 2016 up to 2019, right? Then 374 million people have been injured during that time period, right? And these statistics may look very small, right, compared to the 8 billion people on this planet. But if you think about losing twice the number of people who live in Harare in a space of 3 years, right, we can't just simply brush those people off to being statistics. Those are important lives that need to be saved, right? And coming back to our reality here in Zimbabwe, right, from 2009 to 2018, we are losing 77 employees to these workplace incidents, right? Then another 4,000 people are getting injured, right? And while we have systems in place, we are putting up policies, right, to ensure that this doesn't happen, right? We can attribute some of these injuries to human error, right? Because sometimes even if you put the best systems in place, human error will find its way in disrupting our work, right? We still have these problems persist. And if we're looking to increase industrialization, these injuries might increase as well. So we have to be active in how we go about it so that we fix this problem before it actually becomes a problem, right? So going to the next slide, please. We're going to talk about the economic and social cost of these injuries, right? Firstly, looking at the financial burden. Globally, 4% of the global GDP is lost to covering for these incidents and deaths, right? And here in Zimbabwe, $15 million annually goes to compensating the people who have been injured, right, to cover for the deaths, the legal costs, and whatever costs that come from these challenges, right? So while this may seem inhumane, but that 15 million can be used for other business processes, right? That 15 million can be used to increase capacity in our organizations, to hire more people, to improve infrastructure and business practices as it may, right? So it's important that we don't lose this money this way, right? And it's not only the financial burden that we face when this happens, right? But our businesses, right, they lose productivity, right? For business leaders, it may seem that people are expendable. You can just lose one person and find another to replace them, right? And life goes on. But it's not the case, right? There are significant productivity concerns and project delays, right? There's the costs involved in training new personnel to fill in the roles of these people we might have lost, right? And if you have been involved in accidents, workplace accidents, right? Suppose you're fixing a car, you're a mechanic, and a car falls on you, but you don't die, right? The next time you're going to be fixing that car, you may not do your best work because you're concerned that the car may fall on you again, right? And that disrupts business processes, right? And reduces productivity significantly, right? And that also plays a part in the psychological impact on workers, right? Then when we lose these employees, we have ongoing problems, right? Their families lose their loved ones, right? We have all these problems that come from this. So how do we then solve this? When I started this presentation, I talked about the need for us to step in before these problems persist. So we'll go to the next slide, please. So when we talk about the future of work, what's going to be very important is shifting from reacting to being proactive, right? By reacting, we're saying, I'm not an OSH expert myself, so I'm going to generalize on this, right? So when an incident happens, right, there's an investigation that goes on, the reports that are written, there are all these formalities that are done in order to assess what happened, right? And sometimes you have to assess maybe the workplace prior to whatever activity that's going to be happening, right? And this is reactive in nature, right? If we're going to fix a problem once someone has died, right, we are not valuing human life enough, right? We have to make sure that that one life, right, that mind of that person is safeguarded by every way possible. So how do we do this? We want to make sure that before these people get into their workplace environments, before they do any task, we need to have an understanding of, is it safe for them to do it? Maybe at the time they're going to do it, right? Are they in the right state of mind to do so, right? Engineer Blissful talked about mood, right? For example, are they in the right state of mind? Maybe have they been sleeping enough? What shift do they come into work, right? There are many of those points that we have to consider, right? So going on to the next slide. For us, the future of work is AI, as we are talking right now, right? It's here, and it's not going anywhere, and it's advancing faster than any other technology that we've had in history, right? So we have to go on with it. We have to take it. And it's already being applied in different sectors in our industries, right? So it's high time we adopt it in ensuring employee safety, right? So to this end, I'll start the technical part, right? And I'll explain it once again in very simple terms, right? So that you can understand how we build these systems from start up to finish, right? So I wasn't here yesterday when Prof. Garikai talked about one of the practical applications of machine learning, right, which is computer vision, whereby computers monitor the work environment, then looking at what you're wearing, if you're putting on the correct gear for the job so that you're all protected, then alert the responsible personnel to take action, right? Then we heard about generative AI, which is large language models, right, that ingest text, right? Then you can actually interact with these models to get anything that we might want to understand. So this is the general, I'm going to talk about a general model, how we apply these machine learning models, how we build them, right, for this particular task of predicting the incident severity, right, to say, before this person does these tasks, does these specific tasks, what risks are there so that we can mitigate them beforehand, right? If we're going to see that maybe this shift the person is going into, maybe this time frame is prone to more risks for injury than other periods, right? We might we might change the shifts, right? We might align our business goals to changing the environment they're going to be working in so that they are safer while being productive at the same time. So what are AI-driven risk prediction systems, right? So with AI-driven risk prediction systems, firstly, we want to use historical data, right? So we have all these reports, right, in different formats. We have what we call structured data. Then we have what we call unstructured data, right? So for structured data, the data is already grouped in tables, rows and columns, right? You understand time, date, the name, right? That's structured data. It is order. Then we have unstructured data. Unstructured data is just raw data, right? The one you have in your reports, right? That's just sitting there, right? It has no particular order. Besides that, it's just a structured report, right? But these systems can't understand them in that way, right? So data input, we want to collect data, right, from different systems, whether it's from these computer vision systems, right, whether it's from the reports that you hold at your workplaces, right? Then when it collects these systems, it uses mathematical models to then recognize patterns within this data, right? So there are bound to be relationships within data points, right? When you take a bunch of data, whether it's the time they went into work, what they're wearing, or even their mood to go back, for example, right? You can find a correlation between their mood and the risk of injury, right? While this may seem simple at first, when you have large enough data sets, this becomes very complex. And if you have the task of going through all those reports, right, and using the Power BI and whatnot, it becomes a cumbersome task that no one wants to do, right, which AI is very good at doing and doesn't get tired of doing, right? So when it then recognizes these patterns, right, it then goes on to what we call risk forecasting, right? That was predictive analytics that was talked about, right? It predicts whether or not, given certain conditions, a particular event is going to occur, right? Then once that's done, right, this is the interesting part. While you might not lose your job, and you can, right, you are going to be using these systems, right, to then make informed decisions to say, we now have this prediction, right? What then are we going to do, right? So that's where you come in. That's now your entire job, right? While we may cut the numbers from maybe 200 people, right, to let's say 10, right, you might still have your job. So let's go on to what we wanted to do when we're developing these systems, right? So we start with model development, developing the model itself. Then in developing the models, we have complex algorithms that we have to compare to see which one is the best for a particular use case we want for it. Then we analyze the factors. We find the factors which are very important in terms of predicting that risk, right? Then after that, we'll talk about what you can do, the problems that we face when developing these models, and how we can make good models that can actually work to what we want to do. So yeah, let's go into the technicalities of building the model, right? So we're going to, the methods for building these machine learning models. So firstly, we have to collect the data, right? I'll explain on the following slides, but we have to collect the data. Then we have to pre-process the data, right? It may be structured or unstructured, right? There are processes we have to do in order to make that data usable and trainable for these models, right? Then, so we can go to that slide. It's okay. So for our data, right, Engineer Blissful mentioned about gaps in data that we have, right? So you probably have your reports in your companies that we as developers cannot access, right? So when we want to develop these models, we go on to find open source data sets that can be generalized to your use cases, right? Which was, in this case, we found records from open source databases, right? Which is specific to heavy industry, right? And this data comprised of the industry, the sector, the country, the location, the gender of the employee, versus whether or not they are contracted or they're a full-time employee, right? Then we categorize the risk from 1 to 5, from minor risk to serious risk, right? And we want to predict accident severity in that case. So let's go on to building the model itself, right? So we talked about data collecting, right? So after collecting the data, we do what we call data pre-processing. So with data pre-processing, you may find that when we have structured data, right, I'm sure you all have used Microsoft Excel, right? If you use the sum function, right, to add figures, and there's one space where there is a gap, right, that function will not work, right? There's an error in the system. So we first want to find those inconsistencies in data, then fix them before we go on to the next process, right? So in data pre-processing, we also have what we call label encoding, right? So in simple terms, with label encoding, these machines or computers don't understand the world like we do, right? When we think, we just say, you know, that's green, right? These systems represent green in numerical terms, right? So they put numbers to that data so that they can understand it. So for example, we have a categorical variable of gender, for example, right? And we have male and female. It may categorize them as male 1 and female 2, right? Or whatever the order it decides to do. But that's what label encoding is, right? Putting numerical terms to these categorical variables, right? So after we've made the data understandable to these systems, we still have unstructured data in the reports. So the unstructured data in the reports, we want our systems to understand certain terms in those reports that hint to that risk, right? So we use a process we call TFID, or text frequency inverse document frequency, right? So this basically assesses the importance, looks at the importance of a word based on the frequency of that word in a report, right, as compared to the frequency of that word again in other reports, right? So in this case, we just looked at the first 100 terms, 100 important terms, excluding obviously the prepositions, the end, or ifs, under, over, right? That don't matter in this case, right? So we have to remove them. Then we're left with important variables, right, or features that we can then use, right? Then after this, we now have complete data sets that we want to go on to train the model. So in training the model, we want the model to understand the data so that it can give us an output that we want. So in training the data first, we do what we call data splitting. We have 100% of the data. We use 80% of that data to train the model. Then the remaining 20% to test the model. So why is this done? Why is this important? So Proceed talked about overfitting, right? The case that the model becomes too good at predicting the data, at understanding the data, so much so that we can now say that it has crammed the data, right? It now just knows the data, and maybe it won't be usable in other use cases. It won't be applicable to data that it hasn't seen, right? So we want to test this by the other 20%. So let's go on to the AI models that we were working with. So for machine learning algorithms, right, there's a lot of mathematics involved, right? And most of us don't like that subject, right? So I'm going to explain these 3 machine learning algorithms in very simple terms, right? So for logistic regression, I'm going to use an example of hypothetical, let's say, when we were getting into this tent, right, we wanted to know whether or not we could let someone in, right? So maybe, first of all, we could look at the dress code. Are they wearing a NASA t-shirt, right? Are they wearing a blazer like me, right? Maybe that's what we use in order to let you pass through, right? Then maybe the second one is the tag, right? To say if you have a tag, you can pass through. If you don't come in, right? Then third, we might have a list, right? To say you should be on this list in order for you to get in, right? So in those cases, one factor is more important than the other. Just like being on a list is more important than wearing a NASA t-shirt, right? So this is how these models, this is how logistic regression works, right? It puts what we call weights on each and every data point, right? And they add these weights in order to determine whether or not risk is going to happen, right? whether it's your gender, right? Whether it's looking at if you're a full-time employee or a contractor, right? So that's how logistic regression works. Then we have random forest, right? So suppose you wanted to see if you can take an umbrella with you today or not, right? You just don't go to one person and say, is it going to rain today? They might tell you their opinion based on what they think, right? But if you go to many people who understand weather dynamics differently, maybe you may go to someone who is in meteorology, then you go to a traditionalist who looks at the sun, combination of the wind and whatnot. So you ask different people based on what they know so that you can make a prediction, right? And after getting what they think, you combine these predictions to get to your answer, right? So these models, they make what you call decision trees. Decision trees look at different parts of the data, then combine them to see if they can give a yes or no on data. Then lastly, we have gradient boosting. So gradient boosting is like a student, right? That's learning mathematics, for example, right? They are given a test to work on, then they do the practice questions, then they fail, then you correct them, then they go again and now they are a bit better, they're improving. So they do this a lot of times until they get the process really right, until they are very good at what they do. So these are the three models we're working on and we are comparing, right? So when we tested these models, right, you might actually think that the model that's going to perform best is the gradient boosting, right? But that was not the case in this matter. So logistic regression was the best model, right, which had a 76.5% accuracy, right? But this was a surprising finding, right, because we don't like our models to be correct 3/4 of the time, right? We want it to be correct all of the time, right? So we could have tweaked these models in order for them to reach higher accuracies. But there's a point that I want to get into that each and every one of us has to understand in order to implement these systems, right? So we are looking at accuracy here. So accuracy is that green bar, I think it's green, the first bar on these columns, right? You may not see the differences in the models, right? But there is a difference. Logistic regression performed better at that accuracy than the other models, right? So let's go on to the next finding, please, right? So when we looked at these models, right, we figured that there was a problem we call class imbalance, right? So don't mind the numbers. Those are called confusion matrices, right? And as their name says, they are confusing. So I'm not going to go much into that, right? But I'm going to talk about what we call class imbalance. So with class imbalance, our data set had minor accidents, right, in the highest number, right? So in this case, this model is likely to represent or to correctly predict minor accidents, right, more than the major ones, right? Because the data that was given to them had more of these minor injuries than the severe injuries, right, which present a problem, right, which we call bias, right? The model then becomes biased to these minor accidents and might not correctly represent the major accidents, right? So this is a problem that we have to tackle in the very simplest of ways. Let's go on to the next slide, right? I'll talk about this problem as we go on the implications, right, in this heavy industry if you're going to apply these systems, right? So first one, simpler is sometimes better, right? Like I mentioned before, logistic regression traditionally has to get outperformed by gradient boosting, but this wasn't the case in this sense, right? Just because logistic regression is very good at working with smaller data sets, like the one we had here, which only had 425 records, right? And it's also important for low resource environments, right? Because sometimes we have to cover the diverse nature of the organizations that we have. Some have more resources to invest in more complex technologies that require more money, right, that are going to require more compute, right, which translates again to lower profitability for some people, right? So logistic regression in this case is the perfect model for Zimbabwe, right? You can actually run it on a normal laptop, right, rather than gradient boosting where you now need these GPUs. I'm sure you've heard something about GPUs that help us in making this complex mathematics possible, right? Then the second one is the power of text, right? We might have used structured data alone, right? But what made the models more impactful and have a higher accuracies was the fact that we used this data, right? Which is very important because we need multimodal or different types of data in order to make these predictions more accurate, right, for our use cases. So the point I wanted to come back when we talked about data imbalance, right, is that data availability is our biggest hurdle, right? We're simply not collecting enough data in order for us to build systems that can actually work, right, in these scenarios, right? So we need more balanced data sets. We need to collect every incident that happens, right? Every single one of them so that our model doesn't fall victim to this problem that we mentioned, right? So since this data was used in open source data sets, right, we still have a limitation of, do these models really work in actual Zimbabwean industries, right? And we need to find and gather these data sets, make models that are specific to our industries so that we can go forward with, implementing these AI systems. So lastly, we are going to the recommendations. So obviously the first recommendation is to enhance data collection, right? We need the data, right? And in every form that it may present itself. Prof. Garikai talked about computer vision, right? We're collecting data on whether or not the employees are wearing the correct uniform, right? Then I think we had a bit about predictive maintenance. We can look at our machineries, put sensors in them, sound sensors, again use computer vision to listen in on these instruments. That's data that's also valuable in developing these systems, right? So we have to collect data in every form so that we can make AI usable once again. Then we have to invest in data infrastructure, right? We need to collect this data and we need to store it, right? So you need to invest in whether it's cloud infrastructure, right, or on-prem devices, right? You just need to have that data available so that if you want to implement these systems within your organization, it will be easier for you to do so. Then again, it is important that we have pilot programs, right, being rolled out nationally, using all the data that we have in order to have national models that anyone can use, right? Maybe sometimes even for free to organizations, right? Because these are our people we are losing, right? Then lastly, but most importantly in this case, the point of not losing your jobs. That's where capacity building comes in. That's developing the skills needed in order for you to implement these systems, to understand this system, so that you don't get left out when AI starts driving off. So I think with this, I'm going to end my presentation. I'm sure everyone now has a better understanding of how these models are built and how they are deployed in order to be used. So with that said, thank you so much.
Another round of applause for Mr. Delvin Wengesai. Thank you very much for taking us through that presentation on enhancing occupational safety in Zimbabwe's heavy industry in AI-driven risk assessment. I think that our participants are ready with questions and comments. My team of presenters here is awaiting the questions that you may have or points of clarity. On questions, I would want to call upon you that the questions probably have to be very brief. I know that you may need to explain, but it shouldn't be more of a presentation itself, so that we also manage our time. I do trust that we are also going to be having roving mics within the participants. So I'll start with my right. If there are any questions or comments that are directed to the three presentations that we have had this morning, can you indicate by show of hands if someone wants to take the floor? And I think it is also important that you also introduce yourself. We want to know who is asking the question and probably the organization that you are representing. It gives us a little bit of context. Thank you. Is that AI which is failing us? What is it?
Okay, my name is Charles Chishiri. I work for Tonga Gillette. Mine is for the engineer, just to check, as a country, are we actually manufacturing FMD virus, vaccine, sorry.
Okay. Thank you for that question. I think you are also noting. I don't seem to be seeing any hands. Yes.
Good morning. My name is Tawanda Mzamwese. I work for Toxiconsol. Thank you for the wonderful presentations. I've got two questions. Throughout the presentations, I was hearing the word replacement, the replacement of the practitioner, and of course AI overtaking. So I wanted to ask, because once that is said, people get scared that their jobs are going away. I wanted to know from any of the presenters that how do we best coexist with AI? And then my second and final question, it's coming from the fact that there was a variety of AI technologies that were presented. The question is, what are the low-hanging fruits for a Zimbabwean company? For example, if I go back to work, I want to talk to my managing director or CEO, what would be the low-hanging fruits that we can apply within an organization? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we still have any from the side? Okay, thank you very much. Can I allow my presenters to tackle the questions that have been raised so far? Who goes first?
Thank you very much. I'll go first. I think there's one question which was directed to me. So when I made this presentation, it was basically vaccine manufacturing in general. But to answer directly on if we manufacturing an FMD vaccine, from the organization that I come from, SRDC, it's a research center. And we have already started in the area of vaccine manufacturing. I think very soon it will be in public domain on what exactly are we doing. But it's there, it is coming. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you. So on replacement and AI overtaking, I think Mr. Proceeds Sibanda. You did indeed put some fears in us as you were presenting. Would you care to take that question?
Good morning, I think, once again. I'm happy that I struck a nerve and we struck this discussion. But maybe I'll take your thoughts away from just a general safety practitioner. You'd know that there are people called actuarial scientists. And if you just go on Google and look for an AI-powered tool called Prophet and another one called Moses. So these are two separate systems. But all of them perform exactly what an actuarial scientist does. And this has replaced, if you go to all banks today, and if you try to look at the retrenchment strategies that have been implemented, a department with 3, 4, 5, 10 actuarial scientists has got 2 of them, and they're just utilizing Prophet, and which is an open source. Others are using Moses, which is a closed AI-powered tool. So the fear is there because yesterday computer vision was also then shown to us. It can do exactly that. A department with 10 Sheikh practitioners may end up with 2 and 1 just looking at the cameras. So I still then say the fear is there. But how do we coexist? I think we coexist by doing exactly what my learned colleague from the far left spoke of. You know, he took us through the journey on how these systems are built. And what I can say is at inception level, let's just make sure that we are there. We control how they are built, we input how they are built, and then we then retain data sovereignty. I think there's what we call meta governance. When meta governance is then being implemented into AI systems and implementing your Cyber and Data Protection Act, which prevents automated decision making, you then put in a human being to then control those hallucinations that may happen at the end. So be there and be square, and also learn what the law is saying, invest into learning about AI systems so that you are not left behind. Yeah. I think that's how we are going to coexist. And I think everyone has then said AI is coming and it's going to overtake things if we let it down. Thank you very much.
Okay. So the question that remains to be responded to talks to the variety of AI models that have been presented here. What are the low-hanging fruits? Thank you.
Okay, so thank you for those questions. So first of all, I think I'm going to delve a bit into coexisting with AI to say that when it comes to AI, most of what it's doing, although it's going to mostly, it replaces entry-level jobs or those jobs that are repetitive in nature, right? Those jobs where you have to do the same thing over and over again, those are the jobs that are probably going to go away, right? And we cannot dispute that fact. But for the most part, the nature of jobs is going to change, right? The types of jobs or how you're going to be doing your job is going to change, right? So if you're an OSH practitioner, right, you might now be required to know these, right? How these systems work, and maybe to develop 1 or 2, right? And AI is now at the point where it helps you understand it as well easily for anyone who wants to, right? We now have large language models like the ChatGPTs, right? Where you can now tell it what you want to learn, right? And it can actually help you learn these, right? So the nature of your jobs is definitely going to change, and you don't need to be rigid about it. You need to learn now, and you have to learn continuously. Because as I mentioned in my presentations, AI is moving at a very fast pace, right? That something that may be true today might not be tomorrow, or there might be an advancement as we speak right now. So it's important that we continue to read and learn about these technologies so that we can sound smart. I think it was mentioned before that you can sound smart to your employer, right, just by knowing what these are. So when it comes to the low-hanging fruits, right, there was a report released by MIT, I think a few months ago, right, which talked about how over 45% of the organizations that are employing AI for profitability are actually not being profitable, right? And this was the case of jumping into the train of AI, right? Just saying, this technology is here. Every one of us has to use it. Sometimes your industry doesn't even need you to use AI, right? It all goes back to what you're doing as an organization, right? The activities within your organizations, right? You may start maybe at the basic level, right? You might want to digitize documents, for example, right? In order for you to do so, we now have what we call natural language processing, right? Where you can scan documents, right, and put them in the cloud. Then you use those large language models to summarize these documents for you, right? So that you can better understand what you're doing and summarize and do your work best, right? But what I recommend to you is look at your organization and the processes you have within your organization, right? Try to understand if you have the tasks, right? If you yourself understand AI first, right? Then look at the tasks that can be automated. If it works, there is no use in changing it, right? So I would say to that question, using AI models is specific to your organizations. And for you to implement that, you have to learn AI, maybe as teams, right? Then try to understand where you can fit in first before you employ these systems, right? So, yeah, that's what I have to say to that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We now go to the middle of the house. Any questions, points of clarity? Yes. I do hope that my team with the roving mic, you introduce yourself and then proceed to ask the question.
Good morning. My name is Blessing Baiwa. I'm coming from Technon Consulting International. My question is directed to our good engineer, Engineer Mamombe. Engineer, I wanted to check our preparedness as a country, Zimbabwe, seeing that the prerequisites for AI and machine learning directed maybe with regards to Zimbabwean industries. I know that in the educational sector, AI is done fairly well, but looking at industry in general, in terms of the infrastructure bottlenecks that we have as a country, issues to do with water, electricity, and internet connectivity as prerequisites for AI in Zimbabwe. How prepared are we as a country? Do we have a roadmap? What do we have in terms of working towards achieving the infrastructure that is necessary for effective use of AI for industry in Zimbabwe?
Thank you.
Then the second one is in terms of influence to the policymakers in terms of allocation of the necessary resources that are required for us to then direct the required resources for the infrastructure. I think the questions are intertwined. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes. The roving mic is coming.
Morning, everyone. My name is Hamilton Dovorogwa from Universal Leaf Tobacco. My question is directed to Delvin. Mr. Delvin, I think, presented to us in a very clear and concise manner how these AI models are built to such an extent that as laymen, I think, I understood it very well. So, having looked at all these other AI machine learning presentations, I think maybe the application of the AI to assist or help in risk assessment and incident investigation probably is my lowest hanging fruit. So the question I have is, if I have to go back and probably take this and we want to implement it in our organization, have we already developed this model and applied it somewhere else here in Africa or in Zimbabwe in particular? If so, can we use these examples so that we can enhance or support our decision making in an organization to say already this is happening? Number one. Number two is, these models, are they able to mine the data from existing data storage systems we have been using over the years? Is it able to mine data there, or it has to generate your own data in the system, or it can be plugged into the existing system and then mine the data from there? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is that a hand? Okay, please.
Thank you. My name is Absalom Zengeya from NASA. I'm worried about the hallucinations that have been talked about of the AI systems. And when we look at safety and health issues, we are talking about risks. And in this case, we are going to be substituting some of the erroneous decisions that are being made by management in various organizations, by workers in various organizations, with another risky system, which to some extent can compromise safety and health issues. And we have heard about the issue of bringing back again the human being to check for these hallucinations. To me, it becomes a very complex web. And my second concern, are we having these AI systems being regarded as admissible evidence in the courts where we are going to be having the cases on safety and health being adjudicated on? I foresee a lot of complications unless these issues are resolved, especially the hallucinations, the admissibility of these AI systems in the courts of law. If possible, the last presenter can shed more light on these issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, for those questions, the middle row. Can I now ask my presenters to take on the questions as they've come?
Thank you very much. Good morning. Traikosh Manonos is my name, from Mimosa Mining Company. The question that I wanted to ask relates to thousands and thousands of our youngsters who are in various institutions of learning, both at college and university level. What is going to be their future? Because it's not all of them who are studying AI-related profession. What is going to be their future? That's question number one. The question number two, each one of us is aware that our country has gone beyond 20 years of load shedding. What power backup solutions are we preparing as a country in order to have a sustainable and uninterrupted power supply? Because technology relies much on power availability. Thank you very much. Those are my questions.
I actually had missed you because I was looking at the middle row. Anyway, thank you. I do hope that My presenters have noted the questions, so we can respond. So you respond to an area of your interest or expertise.
Okay, thank you very much. So I would want to respond on the first question that was asked in terms of how prepared are we in terms of infrastructure. So what I would want to say, it depends on the infrastructure that that we are talking about. Unfortunately, probably I will not be able to speak on behalf of other people who are responsible for some of these infrastructures. But what I can say is I can talk about the things that I have seen in our field trying to implement AI and machine learning, the infrastructure which is there. I would want to point out that recently His Excellency commissioned a higher performance computing at the ZCHPC, which is a vital tool in terms of artificial intelligence implementation and machine learning. So these are some of the infrastructure that we are talking about. This is parallel computing, right? In terms of processing, you in a split of a second, to those who train these models, they can be processed in a split of a second, which is a vital infrastructure which is there also. In terms of the power, right, I think we do have alternative powers that we are looking into, the solar and so forth. But there is still a need for a lot of investment in those infrastructure. These are some of, in my presentation that I alluded that this is what we need. So in terms of preparedness, yeah, we might not be at 100% prepared, but we are in a position to start to implement AI. And AI is now there. Just that we haven't seen much of it taking place, but in the later future you will see that already there are institutions who have already started implementing these models. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for the questions. So I'm going to try my best to answer the questions as best as possible, given our time. So firstly, I want to answer the question about the model that I presented here, right? So this one was a general model, right, which was specific to occupational safety and health, right? And it hasn't been deployed in the industry as of yet, right? But what we do at Mokutech is we work with your organizations, right, to form what we call an AI strategy, right? We want to understand your goals. If you want to apply AI, right, we want to understand your use cases, right? We want to understand your processes. Then we can advise you on the use cases, right? Because in the end, these models need to be specific to you, right? And we have worked with NGOs, right, and organizations we can't name because of contract issues, right? But when it comes to developing these models, right, we make a model that you want us to make, right? We usually don't like generalizing models, right? Because we may have downstream problems of predicting, right? Then is it able to mine data? Are these systems able to mine data? Yes, these models can be integrated with your existing storage mediums so that they can take the data in real time, right? Or in near it in real time in order for it to make these predictions, right? Then when it comes to the concerns about AI, right, whether or not we can say this person died because AI predicted incorrectly, right? So in the range of the types of machine learning models or AI systems that we have, right, some complex ones like large language models are still to this day black boxes, right? In as much as we understand them, right, we don't understand them fully, right? What they do in the background, some of it we don't understand. But what we can see, if we look maybe at your code, the one you wrote as an engineer, right? To say, there was an error here, here, and here, right? That's when you can safely say this error led to that problem, right? But there are some instances where these models can just make something up, like maybe hallucinate, right? Something that we cannot control. So that's a concern. That's what the very best engineers are working on, right? And we even now have a new field, right, called AI governance and ethics, right, where we look at these models, right, from a humane point of view, right, answering these deeply philosophical questions as to how can we really blame someone for an error that a system that we can prosecute has been made, right? So it's something that's still ongoing, and these are valid concerns that we still have to address in our field. So I can say I can give you a straight answer, but we are working on it. Then when it comes to the impact on students, right, I mentioned that AI is going to be being used in different industries. Maybe in all industries, they are applicable in a certain way, right? In medicine, they are being used to identify cancer more than and it has accuracies probably better than doctors, right? So in order for doctors to be the best at what they do, right, they have to understand these systems. They have to deploy systems that are usable for them, that make their work easier and save more lives, right? Same applies to other industries. Journalism, you need to read more articles at once. You can use large language models and whatnot. So I think I would say for the students, you don't have to all come to developing AI systems, right? You just have to understand how these models work. It is important also to network minds, right? If you are in medicine and someone else develops machine learning models, you can simply work together to see how you can help each other do your best work, right? Then when it comes to infrastructure limitations, it's very important when developing these models that we develop them tailored specifically to our infrastructure, right? Because now you figure out if you want to use ChatGPT, for example, and use the maximum capabilities, you have to pay $20 per month, which most people can do, right? So we want to make localized models, right? Then you can run maybe for free on your PCs, right? That are not computationally intensive, so that we have to rely maybe on electricity being always there, right, and whatnot. So infrastructure challenges persist, but I think innovation has to get along with that, so that we don't just adopt technologies from abroad, from people who have problems that are different from ours. We actually build our systems from the point of view of our infrastructure limits. So, yeah.
Thank you very much. I think you touched on the issue of even admissibility of evidence, isn't it? So we have the issue of hallucinations that remains to be covered from the questions asked.
Thank you very much. And maybe just to go on the issue of admissibility of evidence, I think let's go home, read the Cyber and Data Protection Act. It makes at the end of it repeals on the Criminal and Codification Reforms Act, and it makes a few tweaks on the admissibility of cyber crimes and such utilization of artificial intelligence systems. But it then also put the groundworks and guardrails for you before you deploy your AI system. So let's just go home, make it a point and read that act. And then in terms of just the actual hallucinations, I think if you followed Muku's presentation on how they are built, even the logical framework, he said the TI-IDF, how it builds off on those things. The idea is it will eventually become confident on its own self. It will be true in terms of the data that it has been trained on, but it will fail to match real-world aspects. So always make sure that when there are AI systems deployed, make sure that you rely on semantic grounding. You also rely on the aspect of ethical governance loops. So that's why we are currently encouraging everyone to read about AI, have knowledge about AI, and when they're being developed and deployed, be be there so that you can be able to then proffer the ideas that can then help you to manage such hallucinations that will eventually occur with these large language models that will then transmogrify into agentic artificial intelligence systems. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now to the last wing. For any questions or points of clarity, if you have any, you show by raising your hand. Can I please have the roving mic? In the front row. Okay, you have to hold on because it's at the back there. Is there a hand? Can you proceed to ask your question?
Thank you very much. I'm Tinashe Tawengwa from Central Grid Solar Power Voltaic Plant. My question is generally towards all the presenters who have tried to fill us in the AI technology that is coming. Specifically, my question is what we are preaching today a start with an end? Do we really know when this AI thing is taking us to? Because I feel we have a subject in question of whereby we are trying to replace all the foundation that we have with experimental data, things that are learning, things that we are also not sure what their end game is. Today we might be facing an issue of infrastructure. Tomorrow it might be an issue of upgrading these systems. Will they continuously learn? To what extent are they going to be learning to? And is it going to be profitable enough for all these companies, or is also just another subject of those who are implementing it, making profit from all the companies? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I have, yes, the front row?
Thank you. My name is Shepard Mperi from NASA. I think my question goes to proceed. Yeah, systems in organizations are exposed to the risk of cyber attacks, and organizations lose huge sums of money because of cyber attacks. Now coming to the AI, because it's going to be making decisions, and like you said, replacing what the human being would probably do. Are they free from cyber attacks, the AIs? Because if they are also affected by cyber attacks, we know that this will disrupt the way they process data, leading to incorrect decisions and advice. And we are talking about human life here, if it is for occupational safety and health. How do we deal with the issue of cyber attacks for AI? How is this managed? Thank you.
Thank you. I see no more hands. I will ask the presenters to respond. Thank you. Just a brief
hand. I think what you'd see is that anything that connects to the internet is not immune to a cyber attack. So such artificial intelligence systems and everything that comes with it's not limited to cyber attacks. But I think I'll go back to the presentations that have been done by my learned colleagues here. When we develop large language models or any artificial intelligence systems, let's make sure that there are relevant security measures that are put in place. I think I talked of ISO 27001 as another foundational standard that you can use. There is also secure coding practices that are done when codes are being developed. I think Muku talked about the codes and everything. So I think the idea is in the general life cycle of our AI development to make sure that we put in the relevant legal frameworks that are there. Because if you rely on the cyber data advancement of other frameworks so that we guardrail and safeguard these systems that we want so much badly. Or I think maybe to just pick what Tinashe is saying, to say they are coming. They are not coming. They have already arrived. They are here, and they are accelerating in terms of their acceptance and how we're using them. So I think the idea is to be part of the process, to jump into the moving train. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'll comment on what the last presenter, I think, talked about. Is it experimental, what we are doing here? AI is no longer experimental. The only issue here is we are lagging behind. If we were to look into other developed countries, we will find out that AI is now in full force. If we talk of drone technology, now wars are being fought using drones, right? It acquires a target, analyze the situation, destroy the target. It's a drone, right? So from this side of our country, we still rely in human intelligence, right? Whilst you are still in the process of strategizing and so forth, already you have been hit by a drone. You see, the robots are being used in wars, right? So it's not experimental. This technology is already there. The only challenge that we spoke about was in terms of data. Right. That our data, the data that we have, we need to start to build our own data so that we will start to build our own models, our own grown.
Some of the questions being posed here are